Good evening and welcome back to the Ernest Faison Show. I am so glad that you have decided to join me again. We've gone on a few battles, haven't we? So today is no less. I am joined by Judge Keith Cardoza. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yes, it was a pleasure. When we saw each other at the function, I said that I think this got some good vibes, this got some good sea legs, and I felt like possibly we need to go ahead and make this become a reality. And voila, here we are now. Keith, Judge, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I grew up, I'm a Rhode Islander through and through.
Mm-hmm.
I went to classical high school, which I really loved that institution. I went to the University of Rhode Island. Then I went to Roger Williams Law School. After going to Roger Williams Law School, I got out. I practiced for years. I practiced for a few different firms doing essentially trial litigation.
Yes.
And then I ended up starting up my own firm, primarily focusing on workers' comp, and hit the ground running. We had a lot of success doing that. I'd like to think I made a good name for myself in terms of being a good litigator, and then I got an opportunity to become a judge. The governor saw fit to nominate me, and I've been confirmed. So at this point, I've been on the bench for a few months now.
Ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman is 35 years old, and just like you, I know your tongue and your mouth just dropped. How is it that an individual can be so focused at 35 to become a judge? I know what I was doing at 35. I know I wasn't quite that focused. So you worked for a law firm, and then you had your own law firm. Is that safe to say?
Right, so when I got out of law school, I didn't initially have the funds to start up my own business.
Right.
So I worked for a few firms to get a wealth of experience. I worked hard, I worked long hours, I put in a lot of time and effort, and I just really spent a lot of time becoming an expert in whatever field I was doing. There's no substitute for hard work, and work ethic. So I just, didn't get a lot of sleep. I put in a lot of time, and then it started to pay off. People started to know me, think that I did a good job in the courtroom, and then I got an opportunity to open up my own firm with some partners I respect, and I did that, and things just took off from there.
That's amazing, the fact that 35 years old and to be a judge.
Yeah.
Did you always want to be a judge, or
Yes.
were you always focused on that, or how did that all come to become reality?
So initially, I just wanted to become a lawyer so I can help out in the community. I thought it was empowering. I thought it would provide me the tools to help people. But then when I became a lawyer, I realized that I was really only helping my clients. So the impact that I had was on the corporations and companies, and occasionally I represent people for comp. So I sat home and I thought to myself, you're doing fine financially, but is this really what you want to do? Is this the impact you were talking about? You're helping a few people out of the lot. And then I thought to myself, the only way I can have the impact I want would be a symbol is to become a judge, because you can dispense justice and help out people in the community and just have a positive impact on so many people's lives every day. So I knew at that point that that's what I wanted to do, although I wasn't sure quite how I would get there. I knew how work would take me.
Absolutely. And just to say, we need more role models in the world, especially African-American role models.
Absolutely.
And so here I give you Exhibit A, gentleman here. He's 35 years old, owned his own law firm, now he's a judge. So, ladies and gentlemen, kids out there, if you think that you can't do it, here is a living example of somebody who said, I'm not going to settle, I'm actually going to do the work, do the time, and this is what you get rewarded with. So hard work does pay off. And it's a beautiful thing, too.
Absolutely.
And you look like you're really into it as well.
I love it. I love it. I feel like I have an opportunity to do everything I wanted. I thought being a judge, that was my Mount Everest. Well, I'm 35 and I'm at the top of Mount Everest, so I need to realize, and I realized pretty early, that I have more mountains to climb. So now that I'm here and I have this tremendous opportunity to impact people, you gotta do it. Now that I'm here, it's about figuring how to be the best judge I can be, figuring out how to remain humble and really positively impact these people's lives, and go out in the community and talk to school children, talk to people in the neighborhood, and show them that I didn't just say it, I meant it, and just put in work for the rest of my life as long as I'm blessed enough to do this, So
That's a beautiful thing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Governor Gina Raimondo appointed you Workman's Comp Court.
that is correct. Mm-hmm.
And from there, you just worked your way up?
So essentially what happened is this. I primarily worked in the area of workers' compensation for the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
What workers' compensation is when you're working in this state and you get hurt while you're working, you're entitled to benefits. So no matter what, everybody generally works. So you might find yourself in the workers' compensation court. They're judges. You might have to get a lawyer, and you have to deal with your employer and their insurance company to get benefits. You fall, you're driving somewhere for your particular employer, you get in a horrible car accident, God forbid that something happens to you, you might have to find yourself before me or someone else on the bench. So Governor Raimondo initially appointed me to the advisory council, which means I was working to help kind of guide the legislature in terms of new laws and new things for the omnibus bill to pass to affect workers' comp. From there, some people made a recommendation that I should apply for a judgeship because a few judges were retiring. I did so. I made it through the judicial nomination process, which was very rigorous. And then she ultimately picked me out of the lot to represent the state. She sent me to the Senate, and I was happy to be confirmed.
That is outstanding. You're watching Ernest Faison Show. I'm joined by Judge Cardoza, 35 years old. I mean, it must be something in the water there. I mean, you're going to pass this on to your siblings and your kids and stuff, huh?
Yeah, smartness. It's just one of those things where I know a lot of smart people. That my family is full of intelligent people,
okay.
and everybody works hard. And it was just a matter of I got to explain at a young age, dream, but just write your dream down and come up with a plan on how to get there. And I did that, and it helped. I knew I wanted to do these things, but once I actually wrote down, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get to college? Am I going to do loans? I got to take a test to get into law school. Okay, I'm going to do that. That's check. Where do I want to go to law school? Do I want to stay close to my family? Do I want to move away? You really just got to write it out. Once you write it out, you got the roadmap right in front of you. And just speak to some people who are doing it. Don't be afraid to be rejected. Go talk to lawyers or doctors and have a conversation with them. Most professionals like to talk about themselves. Let them talk about themselves. Let them educate you on their journey and then see what you can do and take from them.
That's right.
That's what I did.
I like that. I like that. The man who never had a chance never took a chance.
100%.
And you took a chance. And you had a plan and you worked your plan.
Absolutely.
And so here we are now. As we look forward here, you becoming a judge and everything, what do you see are going to be some of the major challenges that you're going to be confronted with while being on the bench?
The first challenge that I was confronted with is learning that I'm a judge now, and just learning not to think like an attorney. What I mean by that is, for the last several years, I've been arguing cases and having really heated arguments while always being respectful, trying to win for my client. Well, now my client is the state. My client is every single person in the state in the protection of the law. So I can't argue on behalf of someone. I have to let the lawyers do the job, and then I have to interpret the law and apply it. So the hardest thing that I had to do, and I'm still learning to do, is to pull back. You have to let people make their decisions, and you have to just let everyone know you're giving them an opportunity to be heard, treat them like people, listen to them, and then you explain to them how the law is and how it's not how they want it to be. So that's the biggest obstacle I've had. The second biggest is just letting people know that we're inclusive. I think we have one of the most efficient courts in the country for workers' comp. It's a model used by other states. But just letting people know there are people who look like you on the bench. The governor and the politicians and the people of the state are trying to give as many opportunities to people like us as they can, and that you will get a fair shake in my courtroom or any judge that I work with's courtroom. So it's just sending a message. Don't be afraid to go to court. You're going to get a fair shake. You're going to get listened to. You're going to get treated with respect. You might not get what you want, but you will never think it's unfair. So,
sounds good. Obviously, you know Judge Caprio.
Absolutely.
So the story goes, I used to work with Continental back when Continental was actually an airline.
Yep.
And so at TF Green over here, and he parks his car because he's going in to go buy an airline ticket. And of course, all of you under the sound of my voice know Caught in Providence. That's going to be his show. So he parks his car, life is good. He comes back out. My buddy had a ticket from his car. So he took it. Now this is Judge Caprio, ladies and gentlemen. I know you all know who he is. So we put the ticket on his dashboard. He comes out. We said, "Here's your ticket." He got a kick out of that, man. You should have seen his face. Like, who would have the unmedicated gall to give me a ticket? I'm Judge Caprio. So from there, we kind of bonded a little bit.
Judge Caprio is a good example of how you put a face and you humanize judges. A lot of people see the judges on TV, and I hate to tell you that that's not really real. You know, they're acting kind of as an arbitrator. They're judges, but it's not quite like that sometimes in real life. But Judge Caprio is presiding in a real courtroom with real people who are going through real things, who might not have the money to pay for tickets or have human things going on, and he always talks to them like they're people, and he puts a face on it, which is good because when I'm out in the community or I'm around, judges aren't some monolith or some robot you can't interact with.
Right,
Treat them like people.
That's exactly right. Speaking about that, which is a perfect segue for me to speak about, you said the TV judges. What is your thought on Judge Judy?
You know, I gotta commend Judge Judy.
She's retired now.
She is. She was an amazing judge when she was on the bench, from what I heard. When she switched over to TV, I think it was good in terms of her being a business person. But from my honest perspective, it's not really dealing out justice at that point. How those shows generally work is you sign an agreement. They fly you out from a small claims court. The show pays for any judgments they have. So you don't actually pay. So there's nothing on the line. So sometimes I know she's doing a great job, but it kind of sends the wrong message, I think, in some aspects because it sensationalizes court drama. Right. There's nothing on the line.
And she is almost like a drama queen. Well, I mean, she's borderlining on being rude. I'm sorry.
She's doing TV, and I think that, you know, I'm careful not to criticize her in terms of I think she's very intelligent, and I think she does a good job.
Yeah.
But make no mistake about it, her first job's not judge anymore. It's TV entertainer. And when you're a TV entertainer pretending to be a judge, you know, I think the line can be blurred a little bit. You gotta pick your job and do it, you know. So make no mistake about it, she's doing entertainment.
Yes, she is. And oh, by the way, I'm Judge Judy, and I just plopped down $9 million over in Newport for a nice little
entertainment pays good for
I guess so. There's $9 million here. I'll take that over there. Well, that's good. And then I look at Judge Joe Brown.
Yeah.
Judge Joe Brown was really good, but he had a meltdown there for a while there, eventually. What are your thoughts on him and his, governing style and et cetera?
Well, I think the problem, so I want to say that obviously I don't know Judge Joe Brown personally, and I don't know his journey, but from what I read, and I did read a lot about his meltdown and what he went through, it does seem like a fair bit of hubris kind of got to him. I think that he fell victim to what everybody falls victim to, and it gives you an example of why judges are people too, 100%. He got drunk off the tank.
As my mother would say.
He started thinking he was a little bit better than other people, and I think as soon as you start to let yourself think that you're in your situation because you're a little better than the person who's in front of you who's not in your situation, you start to slip a little bit. And I think we kind of saw that with him. You know, he got a little drunk off the fame.
He did. So as we switch gears here, you're watching Ernest Faison Show. I'm judged by Judge Keith Cardoza. He's 35 years old. I call him a whiz kid. Amazing how he's able to do. He's got nice socks on too.
Oh yeah, the socks.
gotta do the socks.
Gotta do.
It's the socks, buddy. But as we move forward, I think about some of these cases like affirmative action and the assault on affirmative action by certain people who are in power right now. People, they died in sweat and tears and all these things for affirmative action. Where are you on affirmative action, being a judge?
I think affirmative action is important, and this is why. The reality is there are, and it's not just black people, there are areas, there are cultures, there are races that have been substantially set back systemically by this country. Systemically. I
like that.
It's been literally across the board. So I equate it to this. If you start a Monopoly game and you let everybody buy up the board and you let them play the Monopoly game for 5 hours, and then you let a different group of people come and you say you can play the Monopoly game, but the board's bought up. You should be happy to be playing though. So they play a Monopoly game, they're traveling the board, they're paying rent everywhere they land, they can't buy anything because there's nothing available. Well, yeah, I mean, in theory, right, it's great. Everyone's playing Monopoly now, but the reality is there's no real opportunity to buy up anything or to deal with anything or build relationships because they're starting the game late. They're coming in as an outsider. So there might be a different way to do it, but I don't think it's fixed yet. And I think if you look at the socioeconomic issues in this country and how it disproportionately affects some races, I think that there should be more done to affect that. I am a hard proponent for affirmative action, and I'd like to point out that there's a very real psychological issue with it because you're dealing with people who are generally high achievers. If you're a minority who's benefited from affirmative action, you have to deal with that stigma. But the reality is you still need the opportunity to prove you're just as good as someone else. So while I don't have all the answers, I think just getting rid of the system doesn't make any sense. I think we need to take a serious look at race relations in this country, reassess, and work hard to make sure everybody has the same economic footing, because that'll eliminate a lot of the problems.
I agree with you. And back to that reference about monopoly. As long as I can have Boardwalk or Park Place, I think that
You might get back in the game.
back in the
You
game.
might get back
I'm
in the
putting
game.
hotels down right away.
But at least you should be able to get Baltic and Mediterranean. You know, if you can't even get Baltic and
Hey,
Mediterranean.
as long as I pass go and collect $200, ladies and gentlemen, I'm good. We're talking to Judge Cardoza. I'm loving having him on as a guest. And also, my camera guy, Scott, is doing an excellent job. And I would be nothing without the hardest working man in TV. That's going to be Mr. Rick Dorman. So as we move forward, you are watching Ernest Faison Show. We're talking about law. We're talking about the current state of the system. And this gentleman here, I do believe he got some fresh ideas that's going to stimulate, not try to reinvent the wheel, but possibly make the wheel roll smoother. Is it safe to say?
Yeah, because I think the reality is a lot of people are afraid to have these conversations.
Sure.
And a lot of times these conversations are had in a situation where some sides feel like they've been aggrieved. So somebody didn't get their kid into school because they feel like affirmative action prevented that. When the reality is most spots at the prestigious schools are taken by endowments as opposed to actual affirmative action. So not having the conversation until we have a problem, as far as I'm concerned, is like not having a conversation at all.
Absolutely.
That's like not
Too
talking.
little, too late.
100%. It's like every time you try to make progress with your significant other is when you're fighting. No, you have to work on your relationship when you're getting along, not when you're fighting. So
That's right.
all this silence, and then we just have a discussion when something bad happens, it doesn't work. It doesn't work in any area of life, so I don't know why we do it now.
I totally agree. As we move forward, another case that was a monumental landmark, Brown versus the Board of Education. Your thoughts on that ruling? And is it relative now? Where do you see it going? What's happening with Brown versus the Board of Education?
I think it's relevant now. I don't see it essentially going anywhere. It was just one of those cases when you just look at it that kind of got me into being.
Can you refresh my audience who don't know about the Brown versus Board of Education?
It's just in terms of like access to school, particularly segregation of schools,
Segregation.
And whether you can segregate. I can tell you that how the world works now, generally segregation is forced by economic means. So a lot of people say to themselves, oh, I'm not really worried about this coming back again because I'm not going to be prevented from going to school because I'm black.
Yeah.
The reality is, if you're black, you're more likely than not in certain areas to be of a poor economic background. You're limited to a certain neighborhood, or if you're Spanish in a certain neighborhood, or from the Middle East. So you could essentially be segregated socioeconomically, so you never have an opportunity to go to an institution. So how do you address that? You have to really focus on opportunities. You can't have one group have a monopoly on opportunity. So how I see the segregation cases going, not in terms of, I see them going more towards economic segregation. And there's really no way you can litigate yourself out of that.
Economic segregation.
I don't think it'll
I
be
like
about
that.
race. I think it'll be about what the poor people have access to.
The have and the have-nots, is that where you're going,
100%.
Judge?
100%.
Yeah. You're watching the Ernest Faison Show. Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. I am joined by Mr. Keith Cardoza. He's a judge, 35 years old, used to own his own law firm. Now he is a judge. He was appointed the workman's comp lawyer in court by Gina Raimondo, the current governor. So his achievements are excellent. And I'm just saying, not to sound like a dead horse or beat a dead horse, here's a man that's 35 years old. He's already focused on what he wants to do, and he's doing it. And he's doing it very well. So it's a blessing to have him on the show. As we move forward, you know, I look at the Supreme Court now. And the last gentleman that got nominated, I can't call his name. What is his name again?
Oh, Kavanaugh?
Yeah, Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
And I mean, some shady past. Do you think in the grand scheme of things for, you know, affirmative action to be gone and some other things to be gone, that he was a significant appointee in the grand scheme of things, or do you see it just as a coincidence? And his rogue behavior, by the way.
So just a comment on him and the accusations against him. Those I can't really comment on.
Absolutely,
In terms of,
right.
and when I say I can't comment on them, I don't think anyone knows but him
Right.
and the woman who accused
And was
him.
in college too, right?
Right. It was actually the first accusation stemmed from high school.
Okay.
So the reality is, I think everybody deserves due process, so I wouldn't be a judge. So
That's
if
true.
someone has an accusation against you, I absolutely think it should be investigated. I think the problem with that case is there wasn't enough time to do an adequate investigation. Now, the fault of that could be on him in terms of not allowing it to drag on, or it could be on the fact that the accusation came so late in the game. But in regards to his impact, and I think you were touching on his ability to shape the court.
Yes, I was.
My honest opinion is a lot of people are afraid about the Supreme Court being more conservative, or I think the Supreme Court should reflect the general consensus of the country.
Absolutely.
So if the percentage of the country is more liberal than conservative, then it should probably shake out to that. But I think the reality is more people will be infinitely impacted by the specific courts in their state, particularly the federal courts, than they ever will the Supreme Court. So sometimes I kind of think it's like the bouncing ball that you see.
Yeah.
So we're really focused on the biggest court in the world and the land, instead of thinking about how the other snowballing legal decisions kind of impact us. So I don't think anything nefarious is going to happen. I just think the byproduct of our system is when you have someone who's a conservative or claiming to be a conservative, they generally appoint conservative judges and vice versa.
They do.
So the swing right now is conservative judges, but obviously when someone who's more liberal in, if there's opportunities for retirement, then it'll be the other way around.
Do you see the court as a whole? Is it more liberal? Is it more left? Is it more right? Where is it in your opinion?
I think I think it's more conservative than it has been, but I think if you look at what the Chief Justice of the Court's been doing, Roberts, he's been kind of acting like a balancing beam, like a linchpin. So he's making sure that he comes down kind of in the middle of these decisions based on the law. I always think about this. Regardless of your political acumen and your conservative undertone, the really ultimate responsibility of a judge is to be impartial. So I always know it sounds kind of, I don't want to be too jaded about this. I feel like ultimately, while they're going to be impacted by their own backgrounds, cultural impacts, upbringing, values, a judge's ultimate job is to enforce the law as it is. So I would like to think, and the reason why I do this is that justice wins in the end. So I think that they will apply the laws they think they can best. So
I like that. I look at some of the lawyers back in the day and who are still current now. Alan Dershowitz.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Alan?
I think Alan has a brilliant legal mind. I think there's no question about that. I think a lot of times people find out where he swings politically, and they put too much emphasis on it. Every single person that is worshipped in our society, celebrities, politicians, everyone has some type of a value-based background. The fact is, Alan Dershowitz has proven himself to be a brilliant professor and a brilliant attorney and a brilliant trial attorney. Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And he has interesting perspectives. I might not always agree with his value-based judgments or his classifications, but there's no question. When he speaks, I listen. And I listen to what he says because I think he has such a peculiar background coupled with his experience.
F. Lee Bailey.
It's just one of those things. You hear these names and you think, like, the best I've done is I've read cases involving them.
Yeah.
You hear tales, and it's like, it was just about taking risks, because you have to understand the further back you go, in a lot of cases there was less case law. So a lot of these lawyers were just trying to make it up as they go along. Now we have a little bit more of a framework, but you still got to dare to be courageous. If you think the law doesn't suit your client and you're a lawyer, fight for new law. You got to do it.
And we got some other things on the table: abortion, the right to live, the right not to live. I mean, there's some hot takes that are facing the legal system, and I just hope and pray that they do the right thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hope that they I hope that politicians listen to their constituents, and I hope that judges enforce the law as it is. And I think if that happens, then you won't have a lot of debate, because the politicians will be following whatever their constituents are saying, who put them in the office, and the laws that will be in place will be based on what the politicians put in place, based on who voted for them. And then you have no controversy.
That's right. You are watching the Ernest Faison Show. I hope you're enjoying this. I'm joined by Judge Cardoza. He is giving us some insight as to, from a legal mind, as opposed to John Q. Public. And it's very refreshing, especially being 35 years old, owning your own firm, and now being a judge. A big topic also is the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Where do you see this going? Because Smith & Wesson and Remington and all these people, they got a lot of people on their payroll.
I think the Second Amendment, The reality is there's no real assault on the Second Amendment. I've realized that people want to do some type of a gun control, but the reality is people are trying to stop people with mental health issues, it seems like, from getting guns, and to stop guns that are capable of killing massive amounts of people from just getting freely into the public. I don't believe that guns will ever be removed from. There'll never be there'll never be a convention to remove the Second Amendment. But I think that there's no reason why we can't have better background checks and make sure that people with serious mental health issues that are suicidal are being screened properly. But I think the larger symptom is we do need some smart gun control, but we also don't have any mental health in this country. The prisons are what we do for mental health facilities. So,
you know, that's a very good point. You are watching the Ernest Faison Show. I'm smiling. I know you are as well, because we're getting some very pertinent information. And we're joined by Judge Cardoza. So, as we only have a few more minutes to go here, what I would say is that possibly, ladies and gentlemen, you might be able to take this to Vegas. You might be looking at the replacement for Judge Clarence Thomas for the Supreme Court. I joke with him about that, but I'm serious. I think he had all of the mental aptitude. He definitely has the disposition and the repose, and I'm just honored to have him on the show. As we wrap this thing up, Keith, any parting shots? And 140 characters or less.
Yeah, I think it's very important that people realize that they have more control over the world around them than they think. I think that people need to contact their politicians. They need to get off their butts. They need to write letters. They need to engage. And I don't mean just on social media. If you want something, you got to get it.
Absolutely. And you are innocent until proven guilty.
100%.
Irregardless as to what it may look like, that is the way it should be. I'm so honored that you have graced us with your legal mind, as well as giving just an overall humanistic feel to being a judge. Because a lot of times people think, oh, he's a judge. Yeah, but he's a human being first.
100%.
And that's the beautiful thing. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching the Ernest Faison Show. He's been floating like a butterfly, and he's been stinging like a bee. We hope that you enjoyed it. We will try to do better next time, although we feel like we did pretty good this time. Take care of yourself. Until next time, God bless.